Okay, so welcome everyone to this year's recap of Enterprise World. My name is Joe Stewart, and I'm responsible for sales at Global Sense, and I'm joined by Tom Lilly. Tom, could you do a quick introduction of yourself?
Hello, Tom Lilly here, CEO here at Global Sense.
And what Tom and I are going to do is give you a brief recap of the highlights of Enterprise World, and in particular, we're going to show you some of the demos that we ran, and then give you a couple of the tips and tricks that we learned from our time at Enterprise World. And the picture that you see on the screen now, that's our banner from Enterprise World. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do 3 demos. I'm going to do 1, and then Tom's going to do 2. And then after that, I'll pick up and go over a particular highlight that I found interesting from Enterprise World. And then Tom's got some as well, and then we'll do a quick wrap up at the end. So in terms of the demo, each of the demos are demos that we physically did at Enterprise World, and they are demos that people who came by the booth found quite interesting or useful. So I'll be doing the digital signature one, but that particular demo is done using Power Tools Viewer. So I'll show you some new functionality that we've delivered with the viewer, and as well, I'll show you the digital signature capability. In this particular case, we'll be using a CAC card. That's the name of that card. It's a form of 2-factor authentication for creating digital signatures and applying them to documents. After that, Tom's going to do he'll do a demo of how to automate the merging of revisions. And this is particularly valuable in the oil and gas and life sciences industries, where documents go through a fairly complex review and approval cycle. And it's the task of merging revisions is quite tedious, and what we've made possible is a way to automate the merging of all of those revisions, putting them back into a single document that the document owner can then accept and reject individual revisions. And then we'll also show you a workflow, but that one workflow has been implemented in 5 different user interfaces. And it's a way of showing the functionality that's available with Power Tools for Workflow, and kind of gives you a sense of what some of your options are in delivering user experiences that are compelling for content server users. Okay, so the first one we're going to do is a demo of our viewer. And what I've done is I've just switched to our demo environment running Content Server version 16.2. The viewer, of course, is available for previous versions of Content Server. I'm going to select the drop-down here for the document, and you'll notice that there's a couple of new functions that are available as a consequence of installing the viewer. In particular, Document Viewer, right? So that launches the viewer. And then the other one is Signed Document. And Signed Document also launches the Document Viewer, but it launches it with digital signature enabled. So I'm going to select that. And what it's doing is launching the Power Tools Viewer. This is the latest release. So those of you who have previously used Power Tools Viewer, you'll recognize the layout's quite similar, but there are a couple of new bits of functionality that have been added. You'll notice on the menu bar that there are 5 actions now. So those 5 are acknowledging this document, save annotations, print, export, and sign. So acknowledging the document is a bit of functionality that we added for customers who needed a way to capture the fact that a particular user had read a document. So I'm going to acknowledge this document and watch what happens. It pops up a dialog that is configured by the systems administrator to reflect whatever it is that you want to have there. In this case, it's confirming that I have read the document and I understand what it has to say. So when I select OK, in addition to putting this flag on the little green box that showed up on the menu bar, it has also added to a table in Content Server the annotation or the note that Joe Stewart read this particular document and acknowledged it on this date. So for those of you who need to keep track of who's reviewed documents like SOWs or procedures or policies, I should say, this is a quick way of making that possible. The next action I'll highlight is this one called export. I'll show that to you. What this does is it renders the document that you're currently viewing to PDF. So now you have on the fly PDF rendering from inside of Content Server without having to do anything else. And so remember, the Power Tools Viewer is just a module that gets installed on the front end server. So there's, it's pure HTML5. There's no downloads to install on individual PCs. There's no additional servers to go in and build rendering things on. Doesn't require Microsoft Office in the background. All of the other kind of complexity certainly doesn't require a Tomcat server, as an example. And then the last one you'll see is the signed document capability. So why don't we take a look over here at our document thumbnails, and you can see by looking at the thumbnails, you can guess what this one is, right? This is the signature page. Let me go ahead and go to the signature page. And then I'm going to put this so that it goes and fills the entire screen. It makes it a little easier to see what the document looks like. And because I know that I have the ability to indicate where I want the signature graphic to be applied. So I'm going to select this digital signature field annotation, and I'm going to draw it down here where it'd be nice to have a signature. So what this box represents is the place in which the, if you will, the graphic representation of the signature is going to be applied to the document. It's not the digital signature itself, just the graphic representation. So you notice that up popped a dialog. And in the background, I saw on my desktop, I've got a card reader where I have my, my CAT card installed. The little green light flashed. And what that meant was that it had recognized that the CAT card was inserted and that it has a digital certificate on it. I'm now going to key in a reason, and this reason is what's going to be added to the graphical signature. So I'm going to type in approved and then select sign. So just now, again, the CAT card reader has flashed, which means it read the certificate off of the CAT card. And now I have to key in my PIN. Oops. Helps to put your cursor in the field, doesn't it? And what it's doing now is calculating a digital signature for that particular document. So what took place is a new rendition of the document was created into PDF. That PDF, the contents of that PDF were then hashed, then combined with the digital certificate from my CAT card. Then a new certificate was added to the rendered PDF. So now this PDF, when I export it, you'll see that there's that it now has a digital certificate appended to it. And as you can see on the screen, the graphic representation has the text that I typed in, approved, as well as some other information that comes from the user. That can be configured. You'll notice we've got our Global Sense logo in the background. So of course the systems administrator can configure it to suit your needs. All right, I'm going to go ahead and select the export to PDF, and I'm specifically going to turn off with annotations. And the reason for that is the digital certificate was calculated on the original PDF that was rendered. If we were to export it with annotations, then that document would be different than the original rendering, and therefore the signature wouldn't be valid when it hit my desktop. So now I'm going to hit OK. It's exported. I'm going to open it, and when I open it, it's launched into Adobe Reader. And you can immediately see that Adobe has already gone and tested the signatures that are on this document and confirmed that they're valid. We expand that a little bit so you can see what we're talking about. So again, here's the graphic representation of the signature. And then if I expand down here, you'll see that Adobe has confirmed that the document has not been modified. That's because we calculated a hash of the document, and that was combined with my certificate and then added to the rendition. And then if you go take a look at the signature details, what it's doing there is it's going off to the what's known as the trust tree, the certificate trust tree, which identifies not just me, but as well the entities from which I got my certificate. So in my case, the card was issued from a U.S. government entity granting me the right to use the card. So it's unique to me. And whenever this document is opened up by a tool like Adobe, it will immediately go and test that trust tree, and up through next year, June the 4th, the document will be valid. So what this demonstration showed to the people at Enterprise World that came by was that first, new functionality available in the viewer, such as the acknowledge capability and the thumbnails and things like that. And for those who are interested in digital signature capabilities, they found it really compelling. And for those of you who have used existing digital signature capabilities, they're really pretty clunky and kind of hard to use. This user experience is pretty easy, and of course, one other detail I failed to mention: the approach that we used in creating the product enables us to connect to virtually any digital signature supplier. So the one that I'm demonstrating is the style that the Department of Defense uses, but there are a number of other digital certificate technologies out there. DocuSign's got a style, YubiKey has one, there's a Windows Certificate Authority, so that there's a number of other technologies. Rest assured, the one that your organization chooses, we can interface with to enable you to deploy digital signatures across your enterprise as well. Okay. Tom, are you about ready for us to switch over to you and let you do your demos?
Yes, sir.
And do I need to make you a presenter, or does it work straight away?
I'm
going to make you. I've just made you a presenter. Yep, I can see you.
Perfect. Okay, well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. What I'm going to show you now is the merge demo. Is that right, Joe?
That's the one.
All righty. So this is the demo server that we had up at Enterprise World. We also were showing off our dashboard capabilities. So it's kind of a menuing system. This is all configurable, allows you to set up different locations with and within Content Server or external to Content Server. So what I'm going to do is go down to the auto merge. And we've created a workflow. This workflow is likely to be just a part of a larger review and approval workflow. But for this example, all I'm going to do is run it, and it's going to come up. The nice thing is I can make my dashboard a little smaller. So I'm going to initiate it. We have pre-selected a document just to make life go faster. Of course, if this was a real workflow, you'd have the ability to add and change this document. Also, we've pre-populated the users. Of course, you could pick different users, but I'm just going to leave it reviewer 1 and reviewer 2. So I'm going to hit initiate, and what's going to happen is it's going to send off that document, and I'll show you that document after I get the workflow kicked off here. It's going to send that document off to both reviewer 1, which is Tom Lilly, and reviewer 2, which is Chris Frizzell. So I am currently logged in as admin, as it shows here. So I'm going to log out of admin and log in as reviewer 1. So the process that's happening is that Word document has been sent to both reviewer 1 and reviewer 2 in parallel. And that's the key differentiator here. So you can have it go to one, to many. There's no real limit to the number of reviewers you could have the document go to. That document can be worked on independent of each other. The way we've got the workflow configured is it's made a copy and it's sent it to the individual for them to receive. So at this point, both reviewer 1 and reviewer 2 have an assignment in their inbox. Because we made a copy of it, there is no locking of files, so we can both get to it at the same time. So I can download this file, I can do my edits, and then I can add it back. Now, for an interest of time, we went ahead and made some edits already. I will show you those edits here after I get the workflow kicked off. I'm going to do this. So I'm adding a version of the document that I've already made my edits to, and I'm going to hit send on. And now I'm going to go ahead and log out. I'm going to log back in as reviewer 2. Now, reviewer 2 is Chris Frizzell. Chris was kind enough to go ahead and do some edits for me earlier. Oh, wrong button. And so when I go to this assignment, again, this can happen simultaneously. I'm going to add the version that we've previously made the edits to. That's the CF document. I'm going to hit add version. And then I'm going to hit send on. So in the background, what is happening right now is the document, the original plus the 2 edits are being sent to a tool called Infinote. Infinote is then going to take those documents and merge them. And while that's happening, I'm going to go ahead and just show you what the original document looked like. So the original document was a SOP, standard operating procedure. I'm just going to go to the review pane and show that there were no reviews currently when it was done. I'm then going to go ahead and open up the other 2. So I will open up this and this. See if that works. Oh, look at that. That's fantastic. And even in the order that I wanted them to come up in. Okay, so what I've done here, let's just drag this over and make it a little bigger. Let me go into review. Okay, so Tom Lilly inserted a line, deleted a paragraph, and then bold-faced the line and replaced the second paragraph with a different line. And then what we're going to do is look what Chris did. Okay, so Chris made 3 changes. He made the second paragraph bold, and this is important because the second paragraph, if you remember, was deleted by Tom Lilly. So there's a conflict here, and we're going to have to decide which person we're going to accept or reject their change. Chris then inserted a new line, and then he deleted a different paragraph. So those are the changes made to the original document. So I'm going to just go back through and show, again, this is the original document that we had, and then these are Chris's changes, and these are Tom's changes. Okay, so in the background, the document was sent off. I need to go log out of this as Chris and log back in as admin. I'm going to go to my personal assignments. Okay, so down here we have the merged document. So if you're not familiar with this, this is a style that we put on this. This is using a display view, which is a part of Power Tools for workflow. This makes it a lot easier, simpler to understand what people are supposed to do. Again, if this was a real workflow, you'd have the ability to download it, add it, maybe add a version, rename it, whatever you might want to do. But for this, all I'm going to do is download it. And then I'm going to switch back over to Word, and I'm going to open that document up as well. Now that would be in my Downloads folder, and you can see it's just been downloaded. All right, so this is the merged document. Many of you already realize that I'm colorblind, but I have been told that the different edits are done in a different color, which is great. Let me also see. Okay, and let me change my view option. Here we go. So now if you're familiar with using Microsoft Word and the ability to redline a document with track changes, that's what we're doing here. Now, a couple of things that I should point out. One, the utility, we have the ability to automatically turn on track changes to a document. So as part of the workflow process, we can turn on track changes so the user doesn't have to remember to turn them on or off. Two, when we come through here, you can see that Tom, who deleted a paragraph, that Chris went ahead and accepted. So for example, if Tom was a manager and Chris was the subject matter expert, we would defer to the subject matter expert as opposed to the manager who deleted this. This, of course, is up to the document owner to decide, but this works just like a regular Microsoft Word review track changes. So in here, I can accept Tom's first comment. I can reject Tom's second comment. I can accept Chris's second. And I think all the rest of them are independent, and I think they're all fine. So I'm just going to go ahead and do accept all. But you could see how quickly we're able to review the changes, and imagine if you had to do this independently and try to remember which one. And in this case, it was reasonably simple because there were just two, and it was all confined on the first page. But if you were dealing with a multi-page document with many reviewers and people were doing edits across the board, it becomes very tedious very quickly. Okay, so that's the review and merge. And again, if this was a part of a regular workflow, after the reviewer had, or the document owner had accepted those changes, they could then send it to the approver, wherever else the process would take it. So I'm just going to go ahead and send on. Next up, we wanted to show the differences between the ability to do display views on something like a workflow. So for anybody who has GCI Power Tools for workflow or are interested in something like this, you may recognize this. This is the standard user interface for a workflow, and you have to click into each of these items here. You can see there's a couple of folders under the attachments, and there's a name here, and then you can go see there's a resume, and then there's a couple of different images in here. And we've got a comments field. There are some attribute fields, and there's actually two form values that you'd have to go in and edit. So this is the form values for the first one, and this is the one for the second one. So although it's serviceable, it's a little bit clunky, and especially for users that don't see this all the time. They can find it a bit challenging, a bit daunting. What am I supposed to do? Now let's just show you what we would call a simple improvement using Power Tools for Workflow Display View. So the first is we allow you to put in an instruction, and of course the instruction is all system configurable. Next, you can see the comments field is right here to be edited. All the previous comments would show up right here. There's attachments. The attachments are showing up right away, and you don't have to go look for them. And now there's the different attributes, and all of those are available, whether they're pull down or text boxes, or if they're individual users that we're trying to look for, etc. So all that form information, so those two forms are showing up here, the metadata form as well as the employee form, plus the attribute information, all being displayed on one screen. We also have the ability to hit save or send on or close. Nice and convenient here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit close on this one. So that one didn't take very much time to do, pretty simple, but a pretty dramatic improvement over the standard default content server UI. Next is the tabbed approach, and this is just a different style. Some people like it better, some don't. You can look at the instructions, the comments, the employee information. Again, fill this out. You can see there's a scroll bar here to allow us to enter information. The department information, so it gives you a little more segregation. So there's some documents here, and then there are the forms, and then they can be edited as well. So again, just a different style, different approach. And again, we've added a couple of different buttons down here. So there's a delegate has been added. Again, you have total flexibility when you're using Power Tools workflow and creating this. So next up is what we call the Bootstrap. Bootstrap is a third-party utility that we use to create some of our UI. Again, it gives you a bit of a different look and feel. I'd say it's a more modern user experience. You have the documents showing up, you've got the attachments, you've got the attributes, the different form data. Both forms are being displayed on the same. Close on this one. And then last but not least is what we are going to call something that's similar to the Smart UI. So this does work from 9.7.1 all the way up to CS16, the current release. So this shows you, again, the same type of a look and feel, but allows us to look at the information slightly differently. We can click over here to get to the documents, our images. And again, the information here can be configured so that you can see what you want to see, and we can switch into other areas like the properties here. We've got a thumbnail view going on. So some different areas to see. Okay, Joe, do we want to go to the bonus round and
tell you what, why don't we go ahead and do as we planned, and then if we still have time, because we've got about 25 minutes, we might be able to get to the bonus round. So let's switch it back to me, and then I'll wrap up. Pardon me, I won't wrap up, but I'm going to go through the next part, and then I think we're going to have time to do the bonus round.
Okay.
Okay. So thank you, Tom. That was well done. And forgive me, which of those user experiences look okay on portable devices like iPads and iPhones and things like that?
So most of the ones that we've done can be scaled to look well on whether it's whatever the mobile device is. We try to keep track of that and give you style guides so that you can do it yourself to make it look good on a portable device. So pretty much all of the ones that can be done by Power Tools workflow using the display views are good on mobile devices.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so we're not going to give you all of the things that we attended. And in fact, I'm only going to share with you this particular one. I found it fascinating. Jay McBain works for Forrester, and he specializes in what's going on with the sales, with the channel market. And what I found interesting were some of the converging trends that he shared. So he talked about 5. I'm not going to go through all 5, but the first one I thought was pretty darn compelling. It is the case that the traditional channel community is aging out. I mean, that's what's happening. That with consolidation, so there's been a 36% drop in the number of information technology channel firms just since 2008. So in 10 years, 36% consolidation. 40% of the owners of these businesses plan to retire by 2024. So in the next 6 years, they're retiring. What that means is that in 6 years, 75% of the staff that are working in the channel will be millennials. Yeah, that's an interesting way to think. The next one that he observed was the way in which technology is being acquired into businesses. So at least my experience has been that much of my business career has been involved in communicating with information technology leaders, CIOs, but that's changing. And the way in which it's changing is that today, 65% of technology decisions are now being made by the business. Of that, almost 30% don't involve IT at all. To just go make the purchase decision. So you can think about the various SaaS platforms that are available out there. They can just buy it and bypass IT entirely. The next is a significant increase. 68% of business buyers prefer to do research on their own, and we're seeing that. We're seeing that a significant percentage of the people coming to us are actually coming to us as a consequence of Google search. So they're not coming to us because they've chit-chatted with somebody. They're coming to us because they searched on something that we can help them with. Interestingly, that's up from just 2 years ago, where 53% or so were doing their own research. 73% of business buyers prefer to buy from the web. They find it more convenient. And that begs the question, is this the end of the channel? So an interesting question. To compound that, 80% of them say that salespeople aren't specialized enough. And we're going to get into this hyper-specialized concept in just a moment. But one of the things that I enjoy is that I'm in a very specific market segment for which I'm well qualified, highly experienced in it, and I understand it. So it's relatively easy for me to help buyers understand how we can help them. The third trend that he highlighted is this concept that buyers are looking for hyper-specialization that's really focused on the outcome, on the business outcome, not on the IT particularly or the application, but rather the outcome that they're going to get to. And I found his summary of what this means to be fascinating. So there's the Bureau of Labor Statistics identifies 297 sub-industries. That's a good number. There's about 10 lines of business per industry. There's about 50 geographies in which people sell. I should say buy stuff. So you can think of, the United States is clearly a market, but so is Japan. Completely different. Their expectations are different. There's 6 market segments, and there's 40 plus technology segments. Add that all up, there's 35 million potential solution areas. So Thankfully, in our case, we're not trying to sell to 35 million different market segments. We're focused in on content server, largely in two industry segments, life sciences and oil and gas and the energy markets. So essentially highly regulated industry segments. So we're fairly hyper specialized. The next trend that he observed is, and he coined it, shadow channels. So rather than the traditional channel, what he's referring to here are the various ecosystems, and he highlighted Salesforce, and I'm familiar with this fact. For about for every $1 that buyers spend on Salesforce capabilities, they're spending about $4 with hyper specialized entities that are helping them. So whether it's the implementation partner or a specialization partner, or things like security and audit, all of those other exterior kinds of specializations, that's where the additional money is being spent. So there are organizations that are becoming highly specialized on top of, for example, Salesforce. The next was this idea of industry-based professional services firms who are transitioning from just being, as an example, an accounting firm, but being an accounting firm that's really becoming a software and IT service company. And it said, yeah, that is in fact company. I've seen it myself. Independent software vendors, well, now they're adding value by taking a generic SaaS platform and doing something with it that makes it far more valuable to the end buyer. And for those of you in the marketing world, the digital marketing world, a perfect example of that is Salesforce as the platform, and on top of that, Pardot, which is an application that specializes in digital marketing, tightly integrated with Salesforce, but a distinct product. So there were at least, I think there was one more trend that he had, but and then he had a couple of recommendations. But the one that I thought of the recommendations that I thought was particularly valuable was this idea that to continue to grow, third parties need to become even more hyper specialized and to create intellectual property that helps build the brand that's unique to you. And I think Global Sense is doing that. I mean, we're specialists in content server for the two industries that I mentioned, and we're creating intellectual property that's unique to us, but that extends and enhances the investments that you're making in OpenText Content Suite platform. I'm trying to adopt the new OpenText branding. So, Tom, that was the quick run through of that one. Are you ready to move on to yours?
Sure. And you've kind of stole the thunder a little bit there, Joe. The one takeaway that I had was OpenText seems to be going through a new rebranding exercise. Instead of it being called Content Server or Content Suite, they're now referring to what we knew as Live Link or Content Server is now Content Suite Platform. This kind of just rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? But I think the idea there is we do refer to it as a platform, and like we create products, both solutions and extensions that work on that platform. So the concept of it being a platform makes sense to me, and if it helps by putting it in the name to clarify that, great. The next thing, from a purchasing perspective, I would say that OpenText is going to be reaching out to you and talking to you about extended ECM for something. So whether it's for SAP or for engineering docs or for Salesforce or ... So from a marketing perspective, I think you'll be seeing more of extended ECM for, as Joe's put it here on the slide, everything. And what that will do is create bundles of different OpenText products, as well as some third-party products, for a particular area. So for example, extended ECM for SAP has, I don't know, 30 different modules associated to it, or whatever the number might be. And then there'll be a slightly different grouping if you're getting extended ECM for engineering documents, for example. So those were just a couple of takeaways that we had at the show from OpenText. From us, the two demos that were also very popular that we didn't have a time to show on this is the new Power Tools for deployments. There's been a lot of changes, additions there. Again, we are covering 99.9% of all of OpenText object types with Power Tools for deployments. We also are now extending into configuration management as well. So if you have configured your system, for example, for extended ECM for SAP, you'll know there's a lot of different configuration options. And so even though when you're going from dev to test to production, you want to be able to move content from one environment to the next, we're also seeing that customers are wanting to move configurations from one environment to the next. And so coming out later in the summer or early in the fall, we're going to be releasing the newest version of Power Tools for deployments that will allow you to do that. There's some other cool features in there. As everything is going to the cloud, we're changing our the ability so that if you want to do a deployment, but you don't want to have to be able to access the file system, i.e. if you're in a cloud environment, you'll be able to send it to a particular folder within inside of the Content Suite platform, and then be able to do your deployments from there, both the imports and the exports. So that's an exciting change that's coming to that. The other one, I showed you briefly the dashboard. We have another utility that's coming out called PT Agent Dashboard. So for all you folks that are using Power Tools for workflow, you know, we also include our own agent capabilities that run well and do all kinds of things that you couldn't otherwise do. But this, one of the requests we've been hearing from a lot of the IT folks is we need a better way of keeping track of what those agents are doing and how they're progressing. So we've been working on the PT Agent Dashboard, and so that information is also, that product is also coming out. It's just an extension of Power Tools for workflow. So if you're already on maintenance with that product, you'll be getting that. And if you'd like to see either of those, just please feel to contact myself or Joe, and we can set up a private demonstration on either of those or both, or other of our products or solutions that we may have.
Tom, you know, we have about 10 minutes. Do you think you could show as well the MSB, MRB?
You want to make me presenter, Joe?
Yes, please. And then we can wrap up with me as the. Whoops. Oh, it looks like you could do it yourself. Nope. Yep, you did it.
Can you see my screen?
Yep.
Okay. So this is the dashboard I alluded to. This is not the PT Agent dashboard, but the Global Sense dashboard. So the one that Joe's talking about is book assembly. So we've done a couple of different deployments of this in the oil and gas space. One is around material records books or quality books. So if you can imagine creating the type of equipment that you need in the oil and gas industry, it can be a daunting task to keep track of all of the documentation, both from the things that the companies may be creating themselves, and they may have all kinds of different quality certificates or inspections that were passed, as well as if they are buying assemblies or sub-assemblies that they then use to create even larger assemblies. They get all that information and documentation from their suppliers. So what we've discovered is there's a need to build books inside of Content Server and get the information out of SAP. And so what we did was we've actually teamed up with Alitech and with OpenText, and we created this solution called MRB. And what MRB does stands for Material Records Book. It allows you to take information based on a bill of materials from from SAP and hand that over to Content Server. Then we created a workflow that would go out and find all of the documentation that was associated via serial number to those to that bill of material. So it could be hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of documents, and then pull those together in what we would call a material records book. So this is an example of just a book that we have. It happens to be all of our collateral, and so you can see the information here. This is what we call an outline view. It allows you graphically to move things around. So if you said, oh, you know what, that data sheet needs to go a little further down, or maybe I want to put it back up. Or if you said, you know what I really need is to split this book into two. So some of the information should go into one book and some of the information should go into another. So I can put in here book 1, for example. And then I'm going to add one more for book 2. And then what I can do is actually drag and drop information into book 1 or book 2. And you can see, you can now, for those of us that are old enough to remember encyclopedias, you could do something more like that, where you can have volumes of information. So I can put some of the information into book 1, I can put some of the information into book 2, and I can leave some of the information in the main book. Also, you have the ability to indicate whether you want this to show up in a table of contents, because we have the ability not only to put all of these documents, regardless of file type, they will be all converted automatically into PDF for you. We can add headers and footers, we can normalize styling, we can create a table of contents, and you can identify where you want the table of contents to be. You can insert different pages so that you could have different stylings. You can insert metadata from both Content Server as well as the workflow into the document. So there's all kinds of styling opportunities. And the other thing we came across was the need to split the documents. So these documents got to be quite large. Sometimes there's CAD drawings in there, so they could be huge. And you know, we would hit a 2 gig file limit. So by hitting split, you're able to then say, you know what, I want these I want them to be in separate files. All that could be done. For simplicity's sake, I'm just going to keep this simple and just leave it to where we were originally, which is also kind of nice because you could go through this and say, yeah, you know what, I've decided not to do any of that. I'm going to hit initiate. And again, for time's sake, we've already downloaded this book. I'm going to go ahead and open that up. Okay. And here we go. So this is that where we've added all of the different collateral. It was converted from whatever the native format was into PDFs. We could have added headers and footers and watermarks, etc. But this is definitely a multi-page document that all is brought together. We've got page numbers. We do have a footer here. So definitely some exciting things that can be done along this front.
All right, Tom, thank you. Was there anything else you wanted to show?
Nope. These are just examples of the the different demonstrations that we had available at the show. So book assembly we covered. Our product does do standard PDF rendering, again, from 200 different file types. I think that demonstration is available on our customer portal. Is that not correct, Joe?
It is. It's actually pretty slick. Once you log into content into the customer portal, you'll find a folder there that says PDF rendering, and there's an input folder and an output. So you drop your files into the input, and we'll do the rendering. One of the nice things of the rendering technology we provide is that it works correctly with 8-bit character fonts. So if you need to generate content that has been created with more complicated fonts, it'll render correctly.
And that's like Chinese,
Arabic.
Japanese, Arabic, etc.
Yep.
Absolutely. And the other one that's available on the website is the viewer, correct?
That's right. So there's a folder in the customer portal called Power Tools Viewer Demo folder. If you go in there, you'll find a README as well as a whole collection of documents to try out the viewer with. So it'll give you a good introduction to how the Power Tools Viewer works. And
Great.
All set now? Okay.
I'm done. Back to you, Joe.
Okay. So as we wrap up, we did want to share a few additional resources that we thought you'd find useful. All of the Enterprise World presentations that OpenText created are available at core.opentext.com. So go to that URL and log in. And if you do so, you'll have a folder called Enterprise World 2018. Inside of that folder are a bunch of things, but the one that you'll find particularly useful is the breakouts, because in the breakouts are more than 100 of the individual presentations. So and they're really quite good. So if you need some of that information, that's a good place to look. And then as well, our blog has little updates about, of course, our products, but as well some tips and tricks, really easy to get to, globalsense.com/blog. So there you go. And this is a read. Pardon me, about ready to say read only, but we haven't set it up to do questions and the like. So please go ahead and reach out to us, and we're happy to get back to you. Thank you for attending, and we'll post the recording probably tomorrow. All right, thanks everyone. Bye.
Thanks for joining. Take care.